Welcome to Adulting 101 Academy, where we help you navigate the complexities of adulthood. Because being an adult is not always the most enjoyable thing, but we still got to do it. Today, we're diving into a major milestone that's buying your first car. Now, this is not just a purchase, it's a significant decision that can impact your finances and your lifestyle. Let's explore the key things to know before you drive off with your new car or your used car. But before we do that, guys, I do want to remind you, please take the moment to like the video, to subscribe, and please know that there are a lot of other videos on this channel designed to help you when it comes to adulting. That could be looking for a job, planning vacations, knowing what tools to have at your home, and even after this, we'll be creating a video talking about the things you need to have in your car or your vehicle on a daily basis as well. So please subscribe to the channel so that way you can catch all the new videos that come out and share it with those people who you think might be, in need of some additional information like this. But guys, once again, we're talking today about things you need to know before buying a car. And buying a car can seem challenging. I know a lot of people, when they go to buy their first car, especially at a dealership, it's a little intimidating to do that. And one of the things I would say right off the bat, before you even go look at cars, is take some time to talk with people you know and get their recommendations as to what dealerships to go to. There are some dealerships that are extremely laid back. They're truly there to help you because they know that, hey, if they're creating a positive experience, you're going to buy a car because you're not there just to shop. People who go look at cars at car lots want to buy a car. That's why they go. So if they want to keep it relaxed, they know it's easier for them to make the sale, even if they maybe don't have the best price or the exact same car the person's looking for. Whereas there are other car dealerships where they are pushy, they're bossy. If you ever get into a situation where you're at a dealership and you feel like you're being pushed into buying a vehicle, pretend like you're taking a phone call and just leave. Just disappear. That's one of the things I would recommend. Also, if you have kids, have them go hang out with someone else and go buy the vehicle just with you, maybe your spouse as adults. Don't bring your kids along, really. It can just become a lot of extra work to have them there, especially if you are buying a car. Signing papers can take a little while. They can be bored. So find a babysitter, do things like that, make it easier on yourself. But let's jump right into this. First thing, and probably the most important thing when buying a car, is your budget. There are people who can't necessarily afford the cars they own. It's become a common practice, actually, for people to spend almost as much on their vehicles each month as they do like their rent. And to me, that is out of proportion. That is way too extreme unless you have some key big reason for that, like maybe you own a business and the vehicle you're buying will be used for your business. That's different. That's a whole nother topic, whole nother area. But if you're looking for something personal, make sure your budget can handle it. Make sure you're still able to pay for food and electricity and house payments or rent and paying for, doing fun things like entertainment, eating out. Make sure your budget works. And we'll actually have another video coming out pretty soon focused on creating a budget because that is something that you need to do as an adult, and especially when you're buying a car, especially when you're buying a house, things like that. A budget is key. Next thing is you want to talk about your financing options. Now, there are some different things that you can do. If you have cash, great. That makes it easy. You don't have to worry about monthly payments. But that's not a common thing at any time. Just because used cars aren't as cheap as they used to be, and finding one that is a quality car that you can rely on and feel safe in is going to cost you a little bit more. Now, if you're looking for just a cheap beater to get you 3 miles a day here and there, then yeah, you can go find a cheap car and just if it runs it and kills itself, then so much, so what? It just happens. But for the most of us, we're looking for vehicles we can drive, go out of town, go do things on a regular basis, and have some, trust that's going to run. So financing options include loans, leasing. Now, I have never leased a vehicle, and one of the main reasons I've never really leased is because I see buying a car as a long-term commitment. You want to have that car for years because once you pay off the car, it's a lot less expensive to do repairs than to pay monthly payments on another car. So I prefer doing a loan. getting a vehicle that I trust, and then keeping it maintenance and repair work going through all the years like that. But there are loans, and you can find some good ones on there on the websites that you look at, or talking to your bank, or even going to the dealership itself. Now, as you're looking to buy your car, one of the first things you got to do is assess your needs. Is it just you? Are you a single person living in an apartment who just drives to work and back? Are you a person with three kids and kids do sports and you got to have room for softball equipment? I know for my family, we have a Acadia, so an SUV, a decent size one, not a big full suburban, but still pretty good size. But we also have a little four-door sedan, and the sedan works great for my wife to get to work and back and that type of stuff. But both my daughters play softball and both my daughters play catcher. So I've got catcher's gear from for both of them that by itself is too big to fit in the trunk of the sedan. I've got to use the SUV to be able to transport them and their stuff. And I know that. So when we were looking at vehicles, that was one of the first things we had to have was something big enough to hold our softball equipment, something big enough to hold all of our stuff when we go on vacations, that type of stuff. So when we looked, we knew what we had to look for. We couldn't get a small little car. We had to get something big enough to handle all of our stuff, especially when we drive back to Washington State. We're in North Dakota. So we're talking a 20-hour drive when we go to visit family. You got to have room for bags and coolers and computers and whatever else we're bringing with us. So knowing your needs, if you have a vehicle that, you plan on going hunting a lot, a little sedan's not going to work well. You might need a truck. But once again, if you have a family, well, now you don't just need a truck with two seats. You need to have something with four doors and room for more people and that type of stuff. So really break down your needs. And then once again, your lifestyle compatibility. If you're living out, in a rural area and you've got to drive 30 miles to get into the grocery store once or twice a week like that, you might want something that has a little more fuel efficiency. But at the same time, if you're out on a farm or ranch, you're not going to necessarily want a little car. You'll want a truck. If you live in town and you're not really going out to the state parks or national parks, and you're not really doing the hiking or off-roading stuff, then maybe you just need something, a small little car that can get you good gas mileage, get you to the grocery store, to the restaurants, to work, that type of stuff. So know what you need before you even go into a dealership. And in fact, I would say think about what you need ahead of time and start looking online to see what all there is. There's some great sites online that will let you look at vehicles, get some information, and even kind of choose a car before you even get out of the house. Now, one thing you do want to take the time for is doing research on the types of cars you're looking at. There are different vehicles, especially SUVs, that their safety reports are very different. They may look the same and they may be built by pretty much the same company, which, in case you don't know, most engines are all the same in certain types of vehicles. So just because you're buying a GMC or a Ford or some of the other international ones, you're still going to probably get the exact same engine for a lot of them, or at least very similar. So know that, but kind of check things for like safety reports, past accidents on the vehicle you're looking at. Look at gas mileage reports, get people's reviews. There's a lot of sites where people will give reviews on their vehicles and tell you, hey, this car works great, but it only worked for 10,000 miles and then this broke down. Or they might tell you, hey, this worked great, but when it broke down, finding parts was really hard. I know that when I used to work at a auto repair shop, that the guys there would talk about Jeeps and how they didn't really like working on them because sometimes getting parts was tough for them. And when they did come in, it was a little more energy needed to do the repairs that other vehicles didn't have to have. So think about what you're doing. Talk about how much work it takes to do repairs. Does it cost more? Getting a BMW repair is going to cost a lot more than getting a GMC. It's just the way it is. But also check on the reliability and the reviews. Like I said, people who have driven the vehicles will tell you the good and the bad. They will go out there and they will say all the bad things. Now, be aware that you're going to see a lot more negative than positive on vehicles, on everything, whether you go to Amazon, stuff like that. People will gladly talk about the negative, not always about the positive. But at the same time, you're out there looking for the information you need to help you. So do your research, check the cars, check safety, check the gas mileage. A lot of times they'll say, yeah, this vehicle gets 30 miles to the gallon. And someone will be like, no, mine's never gotten above 22 and I drive freeways. So just be aware of that, kind of check things out. One of the key things to do when you're buying a car is take a test drive. Get in there, make sure it feels comfortable. There are some vehicles that you just can't get the seat to ever feel comfortable for you. And you don't want to be in a car that isn't comfortable. If you're going to be owning it for the next few years, maybe a decade, you want it to be comfortable. You want it to be something that you enjoy, especially if you do road trips. Here in North Dakota, in order for us to get to another city, we live in Bismarck. In order for us to get to Fargo or Minot or Dickinson, it's an hour and a half, 2 hour drives no matter what, because there's no other cities near Bismarck. We're all spread out across the state. So just going to another city requires multiple hours of driving there and back. So we want to make sure we have vehicles that are comfortable, will get us there, dependable, that type of stuff. So go out and test drive it. Test drive it in different conditions. Do it on the street, do it on the freeway. Don't take it off-roading because that's not real appreciated by car dealerships and that type of stuff. But drive it in the town, see how the brakes feel, take it on the freeway, see how it accelerates, see if the cruise control works. All those different things you need to take care of ahead of time because you don't want to buy a car and then realize a week into it that, hey, the cruise control doesn't work. It's a little too late at that point. Now, one of the things you can do, and this isn't highly talked about for a lot of things, if you're going to a smaller car dealership, a used car lot, a lot of times they'll let you take it to a mechanic to get it inspected. And usually it takes probably hour, 2 hours to get the inspection done. I know the place I used to work at, I think they did the inspection for like $100. And they just would go through and see what they could see. It wasn't like real intrusive, so they wouldn't like pull the engine apart, but they can go in and see enough stuff to kind of say, hey, at this point, what we see is okay, or at this point, what we see is going to cost you some money in repairs. Now, you may get the inspection results back and be like, oh, all it needs is a new belt or something like that. That's not a big deal. It does cost money to get that repaired, but at the same time, it's better than them coming back and saying, hey, there's a crack in the engine block. That's a big deal. So you want to know those things ahead of time. And then also check for recalls. Some recalls are as simple as the lights in the trunk don't work, they short out, and you have to get it replaced. But other ones are bigger, like uh, fuel injectors stop working, or alternators aren't given the proper power to do their thing. So please note that you need to check for recalls. That is important. And if there is a recall on it, and you do choose to buy that vehicle, get it fixed right away. Now, here's something that I've never, well, I have done, but I don't necessarily like doing it. And most people don't like doing this, to be honest, but that's negotiating for your price. And for a lot of the larger dealerships, they're not going to negotiate for the most part. They might negotiate on your trade-in, but even then, a lot of places have set prices. They know exactly what they're selling this for, and you're coming in to buy at that price. Now, if you're going to a smaller dealership, especially a used car one, you can negotiate a little bit. If you're buying from a private seller, sometimes you can negotiate with that as well. But if you're going to the larger dealerships, most of the time, the price they have is the price that they're selling it for. And I know that a couple years ago, when the used car inventory was just going faster than they get cars in, there was no negotiating because they had multiple people looking to buy vehicles, the same vehicles. So they would not negotiate. And you just got to know those things as you're going in. But also, when you go in to buy a car, understand there's going to be a lot of additional costs and taxes and things that you don't initially think about. So when you're getting, let's say, a car loan, there's going to be taxes, there's going to be registration fees, there's going to be dealer fees, there's going to be different things that they're going to try and get to put onto your loan to add more money and more profit for them. And that's a part of what they do. There are ways to avoid that. And there's other videos that will talk a lot more about that. You can find on YouTube that do a great job of breaking down different fees you can avoid and different ways to avoid it. But really just understand that when you go in to buy a car, if the car, let's say, is $20,000, in the end, you're not going to spend just $20,000. You're going to be looking more at 23, 24,000. So that's going to increase your monthly payments and something you've got to be aware of as you go along. Now, please understand you have to have insurance. You have to have insurance on a vehicle that you drive. I I know there's a lot of individuals who maybe don't realize that, especially younger individuals who maybe their parents always took care of things and they never really thought about it or never really um, understood what insurance does. You've got to have insurance on your vehicle. So get quotes. If you have an insurance person already, you can contact them and say, hey, I'm looking at this vehicle. It's this year, this make, this model. What would it cost me to have insurance on that? And they'll gladly tell you. I mean, they want you to insure your vehicles through them. So if you're looking at buying something, call your local insurance agent, say, hey, what would be the cost of this? And if you don't have a insurance agent that you already work with, call a couple places, get some quotes and see which one's the best price for you. But also understand the lowest price insurance isn't always the best, but as long as it qualifies for what you have to have, it's up to you. As long as you legally provide the insurance required, then you're doing your job, you're doing what you have to do. But once again, the cheapest insurance always isn't the best. And part of that's because you got to decide what kind of coverage you want. Do you want full coverage, part coverage? If you get part coverage and you get into an accident, be prepared to pay money because you've got to pay for it. Full coverage will help you out. It'll cover your stuff. If you're at fault, it'll usually cover the other person's repairs as well. So that does help out. But just know that also, if you get a lot of tickets, get into a lot of accidents, your insurance company has the right to say, I'm sorry, but you're no longer a customer of ours. You need to find other insurance. So please be aware of that. Next thing to really think about as you're buying a car is the long-term costs. I mentioned earlier fuel efficiency. If you're driving on the freeway a lot, let's say you're commuting for an hour each day, you're going to want to get a vehicle that gets better gas mileage. You don't want to get these big gas guzzlers that get 8 miles to the gallon, when instead you get a car that gets 30 to 35 miles a gallon. You're going to save a lot of money, especially if you live in states where the gas prices are higher. I live in North Dakota and through the Great Plains region, this area of the Midwest, gas is usually $3. I think right now it's 3.09 where I'm at. Last year it was below $3 for a little bit. When I went to Iowa last summer or the summer before that, it was like a 250. So pretty good pricing. But I also know that when I went to Washington and in California in that area, you can get $5, $6 a gallon, almost twice what I'm paying now. So where you live can also determine your cost of fuel. So be aware of that. If you live in a state where fuel is just, higher than everyone else, higher than the national average, you're going to want to get a car that does better gas mileage. And I'm not a big fan of electric vehicles that are purely electric because, once again, I live in North Dakota where it gets to be -30, and that's not great on batteries and electrical equipment. So I get a gas-powered car. But there are some states where having a vehicle that is a hybrid that can do both gas and electricity or just electricity can make sense at times. Then you also got to think about maintenance and repairs. My little sedan that I have, getting tires is a heck of a lot cheaper than getting tires for my Acadia. It's about twice as much to get for the Acadia as it is my little car. And that's just because of the size of the tires, the make of the tires. So think about that type of stuff. Think about oil changes you got to pay for in the future. What type of computer systems does your car have? Older vehicles that are less computerized, when you do repairs, it's just the parts. Newer vehicles, when you get repairs, they've got to sync up the computer systems and work on all that as well, which is going to increase your costs. But guys, really, kind of the main things I want you all to think about as you're buying a car is, do you want to be practical? What are your needs? Do you have a family? Is it just you? Are you looking to transport stuff in the back of your vehicle, or are you just going to work and back? There's a lot of different things you got to take into consideration. Take the time, think about it. Don't just go to a car lot on a whim and buy the first car that has the right color to it. Make sure you're actually thinking and researching and choosing a vehicle that's going to benefit you for the long run. Like I said, buying a car is not a short-term thing, it is a long-term commitment because you want that vehicle to work for years and years, because that's how you're going to save more money in the long run, is being able to pay off that car loan. And then instead of making monthly payments, you're now able to save that money or put it towards other things like maybe buying your first home. But guys, thank you for listening. Please, if you enjoyed this video, got some information out of it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, go out there, be an adult the best you can, and more videos are coming to help you out with that. Talk to you later.